Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome back to our History of the United States video. And unlike the Adams administration, where I could sum it up in one video, the Jefferson administration is quite a few important parts, and therefore it's going to be important and imperative upon me to tell a good story and to tell the history as it happened by splitting the Jefferson administration up into a few parts. So basically the Jefferson administration is going to be split into the Louisiana Purchase, the impeachment of Samuel Chase, Aaron Burr versus Alexander Hamilton, the Barbary Wars, and the embargo, which was a terrible idea, by the way. So it's going to take 5 videos to properly do it the Jefferson administration justice. Before we get into it, a like, a comment, and a subscription is greatly appreciated. I keep doing these history videos because it's interesting and it's going to help people understand what happens further down the line. Because guess what? We're still feeling some of the ramifications from this. The administration of Jefferson, but also from the Louisiana Purchase. To put it another way, this was one of the most significant portions of the Louisiana Purchase was a big deal. And to explain just how big of a deal, well, New Orleans back in that day was, I think, either the largest or certainly within the top 3 largest cities on the American continents. Because it was such a vital shipping port. Which, that sounds a little bit strange for even back in 1803, but you have to remember, this part of the country, the United States, basically, west of the Appalachians, you had 2 options. 1, carry it over land, or 2, go down the Mississippi, through New Orleans, and then around. Guess which one was cheaper? Yeah, it was the long way around, where you would go down the Ohio River, into the Mississippi, through New Orleans, and around Spanish Florida. Then you would get to New York. It was actually cheaper for someone in western Pennsylvania or western New York to actually go the long way around than to ship it over land. So that's what they did. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times you would have to deal with tariffs, because New Orleans at this point was controlled by the French. And, well, France was under the rule of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was dealing with quite a few issues at this time. 1, he was trying to reunify France because they had just gone through a very rough revolution. 2, he was dealing with the Haitian Revolt. And number 3, he was dealing with the fact that he was about to be at war with all of Europe again. And eventually invading Russia and finding out about Russia's friend, the Winter. And coming up in June, I'll do another history video that's kind of a one-off for the topic of invading Russia, because there's an important date. There's a few important dates coming up with that, as well as some other things. But anyway, going through here, Jefferson decided that he wanted to purchase the port of Nolens because it would be a huge agricultural benefit. It would be a huge developmental benefit. And truthfully, it would reduce costs internally in the United States to where you could settle the West faster. And when I say the West, I'm talking right now up to the Mississippi River in places like Iowa, or not even Iowa, sorry, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. We won't talk about the Yazoo land sales because that's actually pretty minor, even though it's pretty funny. Heck, even into Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota. But those were very, very much not developed at this point. And, well, Congress had authorized Jefferson $10 million to purchase the port of Nolens. So he sends a bunch of people to negotiate with Napoleon. And then the French come back with a counteroffer. You say, what if we sell you all of Louisiana? For $15 million. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All of Louisiana for $15 million. When he heard back from his envoy, he said, take the deal before Napoleon changes his mind. Now, the real reason the French made this counteroffer is, well, without the port, the territory was kind of useless. And the reality is that it was really only used by trappers and fur traders, because most of the area is what is, is the Great Plains and the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and even parts of the Rockies. Some of it's actually some of the Louisiana Purchase is bounded by the Continental Divide, and to put it lightly, it really wasn't populated at all. St. Louis was kind of one of the few places that was populated. And, well, needless to say, Napoleon's focus was Europe. It wasn't the New World, and to him, the New World was more trouble than it was worth. So he would rather have the money to pay his troops who were about to go to war with all of Europe and eventually Russia. So for him, it made sense. And for the United States, it made sense because it's just like $5 million for the rest of the territory. We don't know what's out there, but sure, okay, it seems reasonable, I guess. Turns out, France sold extremely low. And the United States probably got the best land deal in history. Alaska may wind up being better. But we have to see what happens with future changes to the environment before we make that deal. Before we determine the value of that deal. I've seen estimates of the current value of the land of being in the multiple trillions of dollars, and that's with a T. And to be fair, that's because it has the greatest food producing area probably in the world. It has still one of the largest port cities in the world, certainly in the U.S. And of course, it also has tons of natural beauty, and let's not forget the mineral wealth of this territory. There were gold rushes in North Dakota and South Dakota. The Panhandle of Texas has a lot of oil. Wyoming has a lot of oil. Colorado has a lot of oil. Not nearly as much as some of the other places, but can't forget the timber resources of these areas, particularly in places like Montana and Wyoming, Colorado, as well as, the Ozarks have some very important stuff. Natural gas deposits. The point is, the Louisiana Territory genuinely would be one of, if not, let's just put it this way, it was worth it. So, yeah. Now, why does, say, so what happened in the aftermath? Well, Jefferson wanted to know what he purchased. So he sent the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore the territory, but also find a route to the Pacific. And they accomplished that. And they had some cool they had one or two cool gadgets, as well as gave every native tribe they came across some medals bearing the face of Jefferson. Yeah, that was a thing. But one of the cool gadgets they had was a Giordano's air rifle, or Giordani air rifle. I forget how you actually say the name of the guy. But it was a 20-shot rifle. It was an air rifle, of course, but it was lethal to about half a mile for, I think, two magazines before the pressure in the canister got too low to fire, and then you had to replace the air canister. But still, a 20-shot, 20 to 22 or 23 round magazine is, yeah, that was a thing. They were also, their physician, or at least their initial physician in this Surgeon General over the whole operation, was Dr. Benjamin Rush. And he has a very interesting story, but basically, the most important thing is, and we can actually trace the exact route of the Lewis and Clark expedition because of the laxatives Dr. Rush prescribed. The official name was Dr. Rush's bilious pills. The people on the expedition called them thunderclappers. Basically, these were mercury pills designed to unstuff the bowels. And honestly, without this massive purchase of the Louisiana Territory, chances are we don't purchase, or not even purchase, but chances are we don't press a claim to Oregon. We don't annex Texas. We don't push a claim or or demand the Mexican cession, or push a claim on Florida, or demand cession of northern territories such as the northern parts of Minnesota and North Dakota, stuff like that. So Louisiana kind of set a precedent that the United States could expand. Further, it set a precedent of westward expansion specifically, and typically peaceful expansion, which is important. And I guess lastly, the westward expansion of the United States influenced pop culture in a lot of ways. Even in the day, you had things like Manifest Destiny, but though that was more 1830s, 40s, 50s sort of thing. But if we go through it, people were always enamored by the idea of moving to the sparsely populated West. You had the comics and the traveling Western shows of the 1880s. And then you had the Western television show and the Western movie genre that popped up with the advent of the moving picture and television and radio as well. Don't forget, there were radio broadcasts of this type of stuff. And even in gaming, once you get to the era of the video game and computing, you've got Western games or allusions to the Wild West, ranging from games like Oregon Trail to Fallout. And that is how important the Louisiana Purchase really is that it, in a lot of ways, it did expand the idea that, yes, the United States could grow and expand. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. If you like the content, a like and a comment is greatly appreciated. Helps the algorithm not hate me. If you're new to the channel, a subscription is also appreciated. I'm trying to reach 1,000 by the end of the year. I think it would be very cool to do that. And your subscription would put me on that road. And I get a lot of cool features with that. Anyway, I want y'all to have a very nice evening. I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.